Fantastic. All right, welcome everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to the September meeting of the San Mateo County Parks and Recreation Commission. We took August off, so for this month we actually have a pretty packed agenda. So I think I'll just get us started and get into it by calling the meeting to order and starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, so let's go on to the roll call. Janice, could you please take roll?
Commissioner Bennett.
Present.
Commissioner Levy.
Mary Lee's here.
Chair Laguna.
Here.
Okay, Commissioner Green and Commissioner absent.
Where is Commissioner Okello and Green are not here?
Yes, I believe Commissioner Green is going to be a half hour late.
So, wow.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 3, which is the resolution authorizing virtual commission meetings. So we'll once again need to adopt a resolution to continue meeting virtually. I believe before we do that, we got to open it up for public comment. So Janet, if you wouldn't mind setting the instructions and seeing if anybody has any public comment for this item.
So attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the hand feature in order to organize any public comment during the general public comment period. And for each item on the regular agenda, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment on, click the raise your hand function, raise your hand if you want to do that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to raise your so unmute your microphone and be given speaking. You will have 2 minutes to go ahead and use that. So *9 if you have to speak if you calling by phone. Thank you so much. And I don't see right now, Chair, anybody that has their hand raised for any public comment at the moment. So
great. Thank you. All right. So given that, I guess I move to adopt a resolution authorizing Parks Commission to meet virtually in September, given the imminent risks of meeting in person. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Janet, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bennett. Commissioner Bennett.
Yes.
Commissioner Riley.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. And given a lot of the other county organizations and bodies have started to move to a hybrid or in-person model, I may want to put and maybe I'll save it for the items for a future agenda. But I do want to maybe have a discussion before the end of the year to start talking about the possibility or feasibility of moving to maybe a hybrid model. So I don't know if the other commissioners how you guys kind of feel about that, but I think it might be worth a discussion, I guess, at a minimum, to see if we might be able to get into hybrid. If not, this year, maybe early next year.
I'm all for hybrid. I'm about to take my 5th booster, my 3rd booster. So I'm anxious. We've been anxious for 3 years. So I'm all for the hybrid.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, we'll calendar it, but we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the discussion. Okay, so now we'll move on to item 4, which is public comment. So as I say every month, this is an opportunity for individuals to provide feedback or address items that are not on our agenda. Janet, you already gave the instructions, but maybe you can see if anybody has any public comment for items that are not on the agenda.
Janet, you may be on mute.
I am. Somebody on the line is Carlo and Yan. Well, 1 second, let's go ahead and put the timer on. I still have 2 minutes to speak. Give me a second. Too many windows open. Kind of hard to get everything closed. 1 second. Can you see that one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I do have Carla and Young. Ms. Young, please go ahead. Second. Ms. Young.
Finally, I didn't see the unmute, but I see your entire desktop screen, but not the timer anymore, just so you know. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I can't see the timer, so I'm just going to go on to my question. I looked through your package, and in the name of equity, I don't see anything for the mid-coast as far as a proposal for a community center, which Neil promised me he was going to bring up. And if you could point to me what section that's in on this agenda, I will look it over. But I basically don't see any funding for that. And yet I do see 17 million for your flood park project. And in the name of equity out here on the coast, we don't have much in there. We don't have tennis courts. We don't have soccer fields. There's a lot of stuff we don't have that people in other areas are getting. So, I've been on mentioning this quite a bit, even gave a presentation at one point. And now the county has bought from Big Wave another parcel on the mid-coast in the Princeton area, which would be ideal for a community center, but I don't see anything on here. So can you please let me know where to look? I guess that would be Neil or Nicholas.
Yeah, no, it's not on there.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're kind of waiting for the Mid-Coast Council to kind
Yeah,
of
right. Yeah, and they're still waiting for Steve Monowitz to upgrade the, since 2016, he hasn't given a report to the Board of Supervisors regarding the mid-coast mitigation fee, and it's supposed to be increased, periodically, and it hasn't been increased since 2016. So I was hoping it would be on here today, some kind of accounting for that. I mean, Quarry Park, the pump track, they took $250,000 out of it. And they also got $100,000 from a community services Granada Parks District. And they also got some donations from REI. So, that's the only things that have been put on the donated towards any kind of a project over here. And I don't see anything really, any movement whatsoever. So I hope you can discuss that, why it hasn't been done. And don't say you're waiting for the Mid-Coast Community Council. Every time I bring it up at Mid-Coast Community Council, they push it off on Don Horsley's aide. And Lena is a nice young lady. She hasn't ever got any of this stuff on the agenda that I've brought up many times. So,
Great.
but you can do it.
Thank you for your comment. And I'll say one more time, this item 4 was for items that are not on the agenda. So make sure if there is an item on the agenda that when you do the public comment, make sure it lines up. And I believe that comment was meant for item 8.2, which is a presentation on Parks Department adopted budget for FY 22-23. But thank you for your comment. Okay, any other comments or any other hands raised?
Or no, it's, well,
Whoa, I did not hear that. Did anybody, was that a no?
no, there is no public comment. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I'm just having some problems hearing you. I don't know if it's the headphones.
Calling me, I think when I close my, my dock station, if I close my laptop, it doesn't like project. Anyways,
Got
sorry.
it.
You hear me now?
No, this is much better. I can
Oh,
definitely
perfect.
hear you now.
Yeah, there is no other public comment for this item. Thank you.
Fantastic. Awesome. All right. Let's move on to item 5, which is the action to set the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to set the agenda. Do I have a second?
Yes,
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mene,
Present. Yes.
Commissioner Marilis,
yes.
Commissioner, Chair Laguna.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Fantastic. All right. So now we're on to more of the meat of the agenda. So we're going to item 6, which is the Parks Foundation Executive Director's report. Michelle, looks like you're here. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair Laguna. Michelle Beasley with the San Mateo County Parks Foundation. It's nice to be with everyone on this first day of September. The first thing I just wanted to mention was about the Quarry Park Pump Track. It was nice to be a part of the July 16th grand opening, and it was really wonderful to see all of the children, all the youth really enjoy that pump track. So I do think that that is actually a fantastic amenity that's come to the coast. And I think it's going to really do a great job in getting kids off of streams and outside moving around. A couple other highlights I wanted to mention. We continue to work with the Friends of Edgewood on a couple of videos specific to Edgewood's green grasslands, the wildflowers. And so we hope to have something finalized later this fall. And on the topic of videos, I don't know if I mentioned this in July, but Adriana, who is our program coordinator, put together a really great video about Friendship Park, a Spanish-speaking video in honor of Latino Conservation Week. That video is on our YouTube channel via our website. You can also see, again, our Open Road with Doug McConnell episode, which aired in, I think it was late June, early July, and featured Hannah Ormshaw, talking about forest health work at Wonderlick and Hutter Parks. So that season is wrapping up, but you can still watch all of the episodes that feature San Mateo County Parks on our website. I also wanted to share that we are partnering on an event with a San Mateo Pride Center. We're going to be doing a history walk at Coyote Point, and we're also going to be promoting it to the September Suicide Prevention Committee because September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So we're looking forward to building our partnership with the San Mateo Pride Center. And this is just one of several events. Our events committee met on Monday for the first time in a couple of years. I think that was Chair Laguna's question in July. So I'm happy to report that we are busy with a bunch of hikes and other events, including our own 25th anniversary coming up next year. So that's all I have for now, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
Great. Maybe we open it up to, Nicholas, you have a comment?
I just wanted to inform the commission. So it will be at the next Board of Supervisors meeting, but in fiscal year 21-22, Michelle and the foundation donated in cash over $187,000 to the foundation. And that doesn't include the in-kind contributions. I cannot emphasize enough the amazing work Michelle and the foundation are doing. I just want to take a second to make sure Michelle gets recognized for that, because we certainly cannot do everything we do without her and the foundation. And I want to make sure just that the foundation gets that recognition and that the commission is aware of how amazing of a partner they are.
Thanks, Nicholas. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic partnership, and it's just gotten better over the years that I've been watching it. So yeah, definitely kudos, Michelle and the rest of the team there. Any other comments or questions from the other commissioners? All right, so we'll then open it up for public comment.
Chair, opening up and comment now. Anybody have anything to say, please go ahead and raise your hand, press *9 if you're calling by phone. And let's see, Chair, I don't see anybody with their hand raised at the moment. Oh, actually, we have one person. Wait, we did. Oh, Fran Pollard, please go ahead. Let me just go ahead and take a second and share my timer and go ahead. Ms. Pollard, go ahead and unmute your microphone and you may begin speaking.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I may need an extra minute, please. I summarized my statement, but okay, hi, I'm Fran Pollard of El Granada. And since we got notice of this meeting just 2 weeks ago, I did not have time to write up or submit my responses due to the other commitments, but I will. And I'm part of a larger group headed by Burnett Silvera, who submitted an update of our earlier responses at the time of the first draft presentation in May of this year.
Fran, sorry, I know what you're speaking on. You're speaking on the Quarry Park Master Plan, correct?
Yeah, isn't that what this
Okay.
is?
No, this is the executive director report. Yeah, so we have to wait until agenda item 8.1. Yeah, no worries.
Almost. Thank you, Ms. Pollard. Aside from that, we don't have anybody with their hand raised.
Excellent. All right, so then let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is the Parks Department update. Item 7.
Chair Laguna, thank you so much. In the interest of time, the department submitted its written report to the commission in the packet, and I am certainly happy to answer any questions that commissioners may have.
Perfect. So yeah, maybe we'll open it up to the commissioners and see if they have any questions, comments, or anything else.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Manna?
I did not have any. I could have been Commissioner Marilyn.
All right. Well, great. Let's move on then to the meat of the or actually, I guess we do. I'm assuming we have to open this up for public comment. Yeah, let's open up the department update for public comment.
Hi, we're opening up for public comment on the department update. If your hand is raised, your name will be called. I do see Carol and Young with her hand raised, so go ahead. Let me just go ahead and put my timer on, and we'll go ahead and get her started. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Ms. Young, go ahead and begin speaking when you get a chance.
Hi, Nicholas, could you explain, I think we're on under director's report or department update. Is that what we're on? Because I would like you to explain what number 3 is, the attachment number 1. It's got some line items and 6-month totals. And it doesn't show anything here for any expenditures for Tanitas Creek. So I'm just wondering what this update is all about on page 3. If you could explain that. That was for you, Nicholas. It's hard to follow along because it doesn't really have any information at the top other than it says attachment number 1. Could you confirm that that attachment number 1 is part of your director's report? And it doesn't show any, or department update, it doesn't show any kind of Tanitas Creek budget item on there or anything?
Yeah, so the obviously public comment is just for open comment. There's no responses necessarily, but just to answer your question, in the first paragraph of visitor data under visitor experience in the department update, it refers to raw visitor data is included in this report as attachment 1. And so attachment 1 is the visitor data.
Thanks for your comment.
Great, thank you.
There are no more
Any
hands
other?
item. No, I think we're all
No.
good.
No other hands raised. All right, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. Okay, so we'll move on to the regular agenda. So we'll start with 8.1, which is the presentation of the Quarry Park master plan. So I believe, Hannah, you're going to be taking us through that.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Thumbs up if you can see that. Great. So good afternoon, commissioners. Today I will be presenting on the final draft Quarry Park master plan. The Parks Department initiated development of this document in 2017. And while we've had some delays in the plan development, we have still worked to advance and complete some of the highest priorities that the community has identified through this process in order to enhance services to the public. I'll discuss some of these projects later in today's presentation, but before I start, I would like to provide a bit of context and framework for what a master plan is and is not. A master plan is a visioning document that establishes high-level goals and desires. These goals and desires often include expansion of recreational amenities and opportunities, preservation and restoration of native and sensitive resources, and mitigation of threats to the community. A master plan is not a document that states specifically where a project will occur or how each recommendation in the plan will be implemented. The master plan informs the department of what type of action should be taken, and then the department will use its professional judgment, different environmental regulations, funding, logistics, in order to determine where, when, and how these projects and efforts will occur. And then all of these projects would be subject then to additional definition and design analysis, CEQA review, public review, and other permitting as well. So we set the stage with this because we have received comments from some of the community that say the master plan is inadequate because it doesn't propose or require specific mitigation actions such as fuel breaks or different water resource management projects in specific locations or in extensive detail. And so likewise, we've also received comments advocating for the preservation of eucalyptus trees or for certain habitat management actions to occur or not to occur. So for clarity purposes, the master plan identifies the need to mitigate threats to the community of El Granada, the strategies that the department can use in order to implement these projects, and the benefits of performing this work. And then it also calls for the improvement and management of sediment, erosion, the park's reservoir, as well as other priorities for natural resource management. However, the master plan is not the avenue to say where every one of these projects will occur or where they'll be placed. However, it informs the department on what types of actions and efforts are recommended for these projects. And so with all that said, I'm pleased to present the Quarry Park Master Plan. So as stated before, the efforts to prepare this master plan started in 2017, and we are currently in the boxes on this slide that show the recommendations and implementation actions. The draft master plan was posted to the department's website in April of this year, and the public had until June 6th to submit comments. Feedback was collected at public meetings, via email, and through an online survey that was on the department's website. And using all of this feedback, the department refined the master plan, and with that have completed the final draft version of this plan. And so once the final draft master plan has been presented to the Board of Supervisors, the department will have to conduct a secret review process, and then the Board of Supervisors would then be able to approve the final master plan and certify the secret document. Quarry Park is a combination of 4 properties: Quarry Park, the Wicklow property, Murata Surf East, and Murata Surf West. The county acquired these properties at different times and consolidated them into what is now Quarry County Park. And throughout these properties, a variety of different experiences are provided to park users, including a stroll on the coastal trail, dog walking through a eucalyptus forest, beautiful views of the San Mateo County coastline, and more. And while each property has individual utility as a public park, the real opportunities, as we see in the master plan, really happen when you view them as one unit. Historic uses have led to several issues, including erosion, wildfire threat, overgrown non-native invasive species. And the properties have been transferred from owner to owner over time as well. And with that, the legally allowed uses for the property have also expanded and changed over time. And so there are several legacy issues that need to be studied and addressed in the master plan. These include ways to increase the allowed uses and the amenities in the park that meet the recreational needs and desires of the community, improving and expanding recreational maintenance and emergency access, addressing community desire to continue off-leash dog recreation, addressing the potential conflicts between hiking and mountain bike use on the trails, examining opportunities to improve the existing trail network, as well as linkages to other neighboring parks. There are different assessments that were done to inform the master plan, including assessments for mitigating the threat of wildfire to the entire community of El Granada, improving drainage and reducing erosion and sediment discharge as a result of the legacy road and trail network, developing recommendations for the management of sensitive habitat and the different native and non-native species in the park, and addressing issues associated with the dam and reservoir. One of the greatest values of a master plan is bringing the public's vision and the department's vision for the park together in one document. In order to have a document that reflects the vision of the public, the department has conducted a very robust multi-year public engagement process. This included 5 community meetings, on-site walks, and multiple online surveys. And through the workshops, we collected user-specific insights into the existing park facilities and a range of potential desired new uses and amenities. We reviewed and analyzed alternative concept plans for Quarry Park and discussed possible locations for new and expanded amenities and that prioritized future uses and facilities at Quarry Park. In total, almost 500 people participated in this process between 2017 and 2018, and this included 235 people who responded to one of the online surveys. And through this is shown some of the top priorities identified in the planning process, were a pump track, dog-friendly features, additional parking. And we're happy to say that we completed construction of the pump track, have implemented on-leash dog policies, and began an off-leash dog pilot program. We've also made progress on several significant wildfire fuel reduction projects. The Mid-Coast Multimodal Trail is under construction. And we have secret review and permitting underway for a parking lot expansion, future benches, reservoir, water distribution improvements, the South Ridge Fire Road construction, new restroom at the pump track, and additional wildfire fuel reduction through the park. In general, we heard that the public wanted dog-friendly features. Specifically, there was a significant proportion of the community that wants to visit Quarry Park with their dog. While early, many of those conversations focused on dog parks, the subsequent stages of the process really identified that dog access on trails was more important. Looking at local park amenities for youth. And so amenities like the pump track and playground expansion would accommodate youth and families in the area. The community members showed a strong support for having designated trails, meaning hiking trails, mountain bike trails, and multi-use trails, and also interested in other trail connections. And the community values the park's rural character and prioritizes efforts to protect and restore existing habitats, mitigate the threat of wildfires, and address drainage and erosion issues. At an April 2018 community workshop, the department presented this preferred alternative as a guide. And the meeting focused on the public discussing the different opportunities and constraints for and surrounding this preferred alternative. There's strong support for habitat protection and wildfire threat mitigation through this meeting, and also considerable support for the pump track. Most participants felt it was important to continue to provide opportunities for on-leash dog recreation and dog walking on the multi-use trails. And while disc golf was shown in this alternative plan, it was eventually deemed not important by participants nor supported by park staff due to some of the management requirements. And so as a result of the visioning and outreach efforts overall, the department spent considerable time exploring expanded dog access through the San Mateo County Park System. And because the dog access was core to the master plan, the department put the plan efforts on hold for some time until the matters and the assessments regarding dog access were resolved. However, as mentioned during this time, several other priorities for the park continued to advance, including the pump track, fuel reduction efforts, fire road improvements, and discussions regarding continued mountain bike use. And associated with the dog recreation efforts, the Board of Supervisors approved a coastal development permit for the off-leash dog recreation pilot in April of 2022. And this really helped facilitate the department to proceed and finalize the completion of the master plan as well, knowing that that was a major component of this process. So through the master plan development, there are 4 overarching goals that are identified. This includes preserving the unique environmental setting of the park, protecting the environmental systems within the park, providing new and enhanced recreation opportunities, and promoting a sustainable vision for park management. And then the recommendations themselves are organized into 3 categories, which are trail systems and signage, visitor facilities and amenities, and natural resource management. Recommendations in the master plan for visitor amenities focus heavily on the entry meadow area of the park, and so looking at amenities that can be added or enhanced into this area. Some of these recommendations include expanding the existing play area by adding additional all abilities play features, or replacing components of the play area with all ability features as needed in the future, and also being able to expand it further to the east and transforming the play space into more of a unique outdoor adventure experience. For the community garden, it was recommended to add a way to solicit community garden participants, outline maintenance responsibility, plot assignments, and be able to ensure that the garden plots are available to all members of the community. And then with the addition of the pump track and as demand increases, a single stall vault restroom is planned to be added near the pump track. And a parking lot expansion has been designed, it's going through permitting, and when constructed, would more than double the available parking spaces that are currently available. Recommendations for the trail system include providing a defined trail network, which includes multi-use trails for hiking, mountain biking, dog access, and equestrian use. As well as single-use trails such as hiking only with or without dogs, and mountain bike trails only. For mountain bike trails and other trails in general, any design and management guidelines would be set forth in supporting documents such as the PWA's erosion and sediment assessment, other applicable county parks department standards. And the department is also working to develop a set of mountain bike trail specific standards that would be applicable to Quarry County Park. And we'll also be working with the community during the development of these standards and would be added as an addendum to the plan. The trail recommendations also recommend that sediment and erosion is addressed through the department's routine maintenance program. And this would include best management practices and guidelines, whether to decommission trails or modify them in order to meet specific recommendations or guidelines. And it's also recommended that a wayfinding signage system be implemented to support the trail system and also to help educate trail users about trail etiquette. Under natural resource management, there are 3 categories that look at erosion and sedimentation management, wildfire hazard reduction, habitat protection, and enhancement. As stated at the beginning of the presentation, the master plan is intended to focus on high-level goals for wildfire mitigation, and the department's wildfire fuel management program, which is a separate guiding and planning document, is really designed to focus on the specific projects. Therefore, the recommendations in the master plan are more strategy-based and not project-based, and this is intentional. The strategies include prioritizing the creation and maintenance, as well as the expansion of shaded fuel breaks and fuel breaks throughout the park, particularly along fire roads, in order to improve and protect emergency access, ensure that fire containment and suppression efforts are successful and are valuable for staging fire equipment. And these also help protect critical evacuation routes. Specific recommendations around wildfire threat management include continuing to coordinate with CAL FIRE and the San Mateo Resource Conservation District on project implementation, continuing to improve fire road access, including connecting the South Ridge Fire Road to Coronado Avenue, maintaining and expanding shaded fuel breaks along park fire roads by periodically thinning smaller diameter trees and removing ladder fuels, continuing to expand other fuel reduction efforts throughout the park, periodically thinning other larger trees to separate crowns and slow the potential spread of fire through the forest canopy, trimming and maintaining vegetation along roadways and access trails where this helps create defensible space, prioritizing the ingress and egress and access along park fire roads, as these really create and provide critical emergency access, and considering the wildland urban interface when planning for improvements and fuel reduction projects in the future. And with all of this said, mitigating the risk of wildfire is more than just removing eucalyptus trees. And we have to think about what comes next. So when we are planning projects that involve removing large segments of trees, we also consider what should be in its place. Unfortunately, through the efforts to implement these projects in the past, we have noticed that when we do remove understory vegetation and small diameter trees in this eucalyptus forest, we do see native species starting to grow back. And these are able to do so because we are creating less competition for resources and more space for these native species to grow back. And these native species do provide greater habitat value than the eucalyptus trees. They don't require as much water as eucalyptus, and they are also more reflective of what the natural environment historically really did look like in this region. And so when possible, we should be really eager to remove eucalyptus and allow these native species to thrive. And we've also heard concern regarding that we are not planting or replanting after the removal of trees. And so with that, it's important to understand that we are not planning active planting because of the ability to observe native recruitment, and that the ground itself does contain a lot of seed and root of both native and non-native species. And so we can allow them to essentially naturally germinate and naturally regenerate, and focus on supporting the regeneration of those native species. And through this process, we're really able to see that the forest is able to really naturally revegetate and regenerate on its own, but without having to take as much of an active planting approach. Regarding erosion and sedimentation and water resources, while the County Parks Department has limited ability to modify the amount of runoff that the park captures during rain events, the department is able to focus on recommendations around the improvements to the reservoir, including a water line to help control capacity, and other erosion and sedimentation and drainage and culvert improvements that are discussed in the master plan. We have an accompanying document assessment done by Pacific Watershed and Associates that includes a very extensive field analysis and establishes priorities for implementation for these types of projects. And so the department would utilize this assessment heavily to be able to focus on how to and where to address erosion and drainage issues. Many of these are associated with the legacy road and trail network within the park, and that the result of these corrections and corrective actions would reduce sedimentation and be able to reduce concentrated runoff from the road surfaces. Also addressed in the master plan was the integrity and the condition of the reservoir at the park. And it was determined that the earthen dam is still stable and well constructed and is not likely to fail under normal conditions. Actions to make improvement to the reservoir to help control water levels as necessary are recommended, and the planning efforts for this are underway. So the Quarry Park Master Plan is designed to be a 20-year vision document that provides guidance on how the park is managed and improved. And as such, it includes an implementation framework for each recommendation, including trail systems and signage, visitor facilities and amenities, and then natural resource management. And these timeframes are broken into 5 categories. Projects that are in progress, are ongoing, would occur during short-term timeframe, medium-term, and then longer-term. And the specifics of what types of actions may fall within these timelines for implementation are contained within the master plan. As already mentioned, progress on implementing recommendations and priorities in the master plan have already been underway. And while a draft of the master plan was shared with the public in 2018, during the period from 2018 to now, all of the efforts listed on this slide are inclusive of efforts that the department has either had underway or have completed. And under just speaking to the wildfire fuel mitigation aspect of the master plan as well, and the implementation efforts around that, by far the most comments that we have received to date on the draft master plan have been about wildfire mitigation concerns. And so again, linking this back to the department's wildfire fuel management program, this is really the key guiding document for the implementation and specific details of fuel reduction projects that the department conducts. However, there are 3 projects of the 32 projects within the fuel management program that are located within Quarry Park. And these are listed on the slide or referred to as Project 2, 8, and 16. Project 16 is an effort to create and maintain shaded fuel breaks along the fire roads within Quarry County Park, and is a project that is currently in progress. It includes this purple area that you can see on the map where a shaded fuel break would be implemented following the South Ridge Fire Road, Dolphin Fire Road, and the Middle Ridge Fire Road, as well as some area around the lower section of the park. And the green area adjacent is extends to other hazard tree removals that would occur as part of that shaded fuel break effort. And so the goal of this is that the connectivity and location of the shaded fuel break effort would serve as an area that can disturb fire behavior and keep a ground fire on the ground, be able to preserve emergency access, support first responders that are responding to suppress a fire. And the area of Project 16 also includes a portion that is not yet underway, which is this orange colored area, commonly referred to as the El Granada Boulevard swath. And then work in this area would also include shaded fuel break efforts and other work to reduce the density of hazardous fuels and vegetation, be able to break the vertical and horizontal continuity of fuels in this area, and help reduce the likelihood of spread of fire within this area. Other projects include Project 2, which can be seen in some of the yellow patches, which is maintenance of the 2019 Governor's Fuel Reduction Project. And then at the bottom of the park, you'll see another blue highlighted area, which is Project 8. And this would help create a full fuel break between the park and the community at this lower park boundary area. Collectively, these projects help mitigate the risk of wildfire to all of El Granada by reducing the amount of fire fuel present in the park, and really being able to help with access, fire suppression, and managing the way in which a fire may behave in the event one does occur. So lastly, just to cover what the next steps for the master plan involve, the Board of Supervisors would be provided a presentation on the final draft master plan in order for them to recommend the department initiate the CEQA review process. And so once that approval to proceed is provided, the department would then conduct the CEQA environmental review process, and then the adoption of the final master plan and certification of the CEQA document would be able to be done by the Board of Supervisors. with the tentative timing that that final adoption would occur in the spring or summer of 2023. And with that, I would open it up to any questions.
Great. Well, thank you, Hannah. That was really good and very thorough. And actually, you got the first question I was going to ask, which is the timing, of the SQL review and the sequencing. So I got that one. Maybe I'll hand it off to kind of any of the other commissioners or park staff if you guys have any comments before we go into the broader public comment. Commissioner Merrilees?
Yeah, I have a question. You said that this is a 20-year document, I guess. I'm wondering, since a lot has changed in Quarry Park just in the last year, will this be reviewed like in 5 years? Will we have an update? Is there an update planned before the 20 years? Because it seems like things are changing rapidly there, and
yeah, I think the way in which we have the implementation timelines laid out, that really helps us keep an idea of the target for when different recommendations are planned or feasible or able to be completed, and that really through that whole 20-year time frame will really guide the department in setting priorities and milestones for completing different recommendations. And so overall, that implementation timeline and framework would be a way for the department to essentially reflect on progress over time and be able to reassess timelines for different projects as well. So that breakdown within the plan is essentially a guiding, every 5 years, like a 10-year chunk of time, we have the opportunity to assess the progress made on implementation within those discrete timeframes.
I guess my question was about this process now took a lot of public input, a lot of public input, and some of that input started in 2017, which is a while ago now, before the pump crack and before dog access and changes that are going on in the park. Will the public have a chance in the future to review what has gone on and how the master plan should be tweaked kind of in real time down the road?
So there would be definitely opportunity for public engagement and public input through implementation of different projects. Many would require other planning and permitting efforts that also include public engagement. So there are project specific opportunities for that through the implementation efforts, and through that be able to continue to hear the most up-to-date feedback and desires from the community.
Okay, great. That was my question. Thank you.
Great. Any other feedback or questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Green? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Green had her hand up. Sorry, we'll get you, Sam, after.
Just real quick, thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Hannah. For the dam, where you said it should be fine under normal conditions, like, does that include like an expected earthquake? Like, what is the risk situation there and mitigation plans, if any?
Yeah, so the assessment on the dam, there was a full report by Pacific Watershed and Associates on the reservoir, and through that, the dam, the earthen dam stability was assessed, and they, deemed it in good condition, well constructed, and at no risk of failure. And this is assuming, under normal conditions, there's no risk of imminent failure. There is a seismic stability assessment included in that as well, but through that, extreme events and earthquakes, especially, on the very extreme end, are difficult to plan for and anticipate. and a limit to, overall stability of the dam, but the assessment did include seismic stability assessment as well, and did not express that there was imminent risk related to that stability.
Great. Commissioner Manning?
Hannah, as always, amazing presentation, very thorough on a lot of your illustrated detail and what we have to look forward to in the upcoming, fiscal year. And I had a question on Flood Park and where are they, and maybe either you or Nicholas can answer this. What's the potential of increase? Meaning, are they going to move forward and build those additional sports fields and whatnot, and how that's going to impact the neighborhoods?
Commissioner Minay, just to make sure I heard you right, did you ask about Flood Park?
Yes.
Through the chair, we're on a different agenda item right now, Commissioner Manna. So I think you might be asking about the budget, which is the next agenda item.
Okay. My bad. I jumped a step.
No worries. And then also, I mean, I know we've had a couple of updates on Flood Park, but if you want to propose to add, a follow-up to a future agenda, we can also address it in that item as well. Great. The only other question I had, and it's not exactly related to the master plan, but it's more just a little bit more information about some of the stuff that's been going on. I remember prior to the rollout of the pump track, I know there was a ton of concern about parking issues. I actually wanted to know, like, and I don't know if we have the data, and sorry if you had put it in the pack. I don't think you put it in the packet, but have we seen that, like, extremely large upsurge in traffic that we were expecting? I mean, I know in the master plan there is that piece to kind of add additional parking. I just wanted to know, like, in terms of the data and what we've seen, have we seen that sharp increase in parking that a lot of folks were fearing, or are we still okay for right now?
And Chair Laguna, I'll take that one.
Okay.
So we have not observed as a department this huge increase in traffic as a result of the pump track. We as a department have also not seen this catastrophic overflow of parking that was feared by some as a result of the pump track. I have also checked in with some members of the community, certainly not all, but some, and I have not heard that people are unable to park in front of their house as a result of the pump track. And what I've heard largely is that, which is what we suspected, which is a lot of the people using the track are from within riding distance. And so they ride their bike to the pump track, they ride the pump track, and then they ride home. Not to say that some people don't drive, but I have not heard that there's this catastrophic increase as a result of the pump track.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Mariles?
Yeah, I just had a couple of quick follow-ups. I wanted to know if you have, I know it's hard to estimate the planning process, but if we have an idea of when we think we're going to get those extra parking spaces, because I know that the neighborhood is looking forward to those, and it'd be great to get those in. And it's nice that the neighbors are behind that project, because it might make it easier for people to come to the parks, and it's nice that the neighbors are behind that. And then the other question was about runoff. I don't know if this is the right time to address that, but there were a lot of questions from the community regarding runoff and overflow from the dam during a big flood situation. And I guess the environmental assessment will answer some of those questions, but I kind of wanted to make sure that there was going to be an ongoing dialogue where the neighbors are able to provide input. I mean, this may be something that will change over time. We may get more rain events, we may get less rain events. I don't know. But it would be nice to know that the Parks Department is open to input from the neighborhood regarding this issue, and maybe even work with the neighborhood and perhaps even Public Works in terms of if the runoff did come down, where would it go through the neighborhood or whatever. But I just kind of wanted to know that you know that the neighbors were concerned about this and that you were aware of it, and that that you'd be working with the future after this master plan is implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Neil, for the first question, we have a coastal development permit application in process for the parking lot. We don't have a timeline right now for when that would be approved and we be ready to go for construction, but it is currently in progress. And so, forward momentum on implementation for that. For the hydrology and runoff concerns, we have definitely heard the concerns from the community, and have had some conversations with our Department of Public Works regarding the concerns already at this time, and are definitely open to continuing to have that dialogue with the Department of Public Works, with the community, with the county as a whole, and consider solutions to this runoff issue. And acknowledge that Quarry Park is one piece of the concern around runoff, but it's really kind of a landscape scale and very multi-factored issue when it comes to sources and inputs, and really kind of the solutions around runoff.
Right on. Well, thank you, Hannah.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners before we hand it over? And actually, Parks Department as well. If you guys have any comments about this discussion topic that we have here, because I think there's going to be a lot more kind of work that's going to go on. I don't think as a commission we're voting on anything right now, or kind of giving our thumbs up. I think there's a little bit more work to be done, but yeah, any other comments or thoughts from either the Parks Department or other commissioners?
Chair Laguna, just wanted to reemphasize what you were just alluding to, which is this is, for members of the public, this is not an action item at this meeting, at least. So just wanted to make sure that members of the public are aware of that. Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, and I guess as part of the public input process, maybe what we'll do right now is open it up for feedback and comments. Janice, can you help us out there?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we have one hand raised for public comments. I will now call on, actually two hand raised, one from BRS and the other one from Carla Ann Young. So I'll go ahead and call, and Fran Pollard. I'll go ahead and call on BRS first. Give me a second while I put my timer on. Okay, go ahead and unmute your microphone and begin speaking, please.
Okay, is that, sorry, this is Burnett Silvera. I'm not sure if you're going to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because my computer talked to Zoom and said BRS, so it's Burnett Silvera. I submitted written comments, so I won't take additional time because of the limitations, but we our group also submitted written correspondence to the commissioners and would be available to answer any questions they may have. Hopefully they've had an opportunity to read the about 6.5 pages that gives sort of an outline of what we're concerned about. I will say we have had some discussions with the Parks Department, but I can't say that they've been positive. And I'll just leave it at that and not take up any more of the time that should not be allotted to me since I provided written comments. Thank you. But I am available if you have some questions.
Thank you so much for your comment. I will next call on Carol Ann Young. Please unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you. It is pronounced Carlisle, just so you know, and other people like Nicholas know me as Sid. I was
Sorry, can you hear us now?
I hit unmute. Did you not hear anything I said already?
Not yet. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is pronounced Carlisle, not what you were saying. And nickname is Sid. A lot of people know me that way in the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you
community.
for clarifying.
Okay. And this is for Hannah, regarding the natural resource part of your presentation. On the map of Quarry Park, you said that project 16, the orange section is not underway, but I have attended lots of MCC meetings when they were talking about Quarry Park, and that I would like to know the implementation timeline for addressing that orange section on the map that abuts on the western portion of Quarry Park, all the homes that are at risk in case there's a fire, because there's no fire road through there or anything, and it does pose an imminent risk. And then I wanted to just mention, as far as the drainage goes, it sounds like you haven't really created any kind of thing for that either. And there was a mention of the pump track on the front page of the Daily Review recently. And I think you have only 18 spaces planned, but you have no timeline for that. As far as the drainage goes, if you don't address it soon, we're going to be into the rainy season. So I'd like to suggest that you talk to the Department of Public Works and ask them if they could install a catch basin grate across the entrance of Quarry Park. Because when it rains, it comes flooding out of the park and down Santa Maria and along those affecting all those homeowners there. But a catch basin could take care of any flowing out of the park. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. I will next call on one more comment on Fran Pollard. Please accept the invitation and begin speaking when you're available.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I have a question first for the commissioners before I do. Did you get all our comments that were submitted after the draft was presented and read them? Because it has not been publicized. So I think they should be on the website so we can review them also. So the public can see and compare. Okay, can we start over? I'll take Burnett's extra minute. So I already had mentioned that, you know, I spoke earlier, so I won't repeat. I just want to know that I hope that the commissioners have read our comments and consider them. The residents who adjoin Quarry Park all along Santa Maria and Columbus wrote on 4 issues: the drainage runoff from the park and flash flood risk, the fire prevention and fuel reduction, the parking lot extension for overflow parking in our neighborhood. And I can assure you, we have plenty of overflow parking every weekend. A much needed dog park is the 4th thing, preferably elsewhere. It was suggested Murata Surf East. So our comments were not addressed in this final master plan draft since it does not address current concerns. It was written 5+ years ago, and much of the data collected, such as visitors of Quarry Park, among other items, ended in June of 2021. We hope you will not approve this final draft today, but if you do, we ask that you request another study to address these issues of concerns, which are a result of the developments and activities in the park and which affect our neighborhood, and which you state your intention to protect the neighbors. Just Monday of this week, the Park Committee of the Granada Community Services District met and voted unanimously to urge the county to, please allow me to finish this. This is a real important issue.
Yeah, wrap it up, please. Thank you.
We the park committee of the Granada Community Services District met and unanimously voted to urge the county to complete the extension of the Quarry Park parking lot as mitigation for the pump track, which opened in July of this year. That should have been done years ago, but simultaneously with the construction of the pump track, but is still not done. And I can assure you that every weekend we are bombarded with parking from bikers, dog walkers, and everybody else. And starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, both Saturday and Sundays, a large group comes and holds meetings in the park. And then the other people start arriving, the bikers and the dog park walkers. And it just starts going down. The first group takes up the whole parking lot and then some of the street parking. And then the others just add to it. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pollard. Okay. All right. Any other public comment before we move on?
There are no more public comments for this item. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's move on to item 8.2, the presentation on Parks Department adopted budget for FY 22-23. I believe, Rolando, you're going to be taking us through this?
Sorry, Commissioner Laguna, do you mind
Oh.
if we do we have the opportunity to respond or like talk to the department in response to working?
Definitely, feel free. Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I mean, I think, you know, whether it's the runoff or the risk assessment or what have you, I think or it seems like the plan has been, you know, like carefully put together and is comprehensive to some extent, but it's pretty blue sky, which is to say it's not like a risk or a hazard or a problem solving document so much. And so I guess what I'm just trying to understand is, like, on the one hand, the department says like lots of community buy-in, and then on the other hand, there are voices and groups of voices saying not okay. What is the plan for addressing the if it's not this document, which like needs to get to CEQA, like what is the plan for addressing the concerns?
Commissioner, through the chair, Commissioner Green, I'll take that. So I think there's a combination, right? So concerns regarding things like parking, that's underway. And so there's some efforts to resolve some of the issues that have been raised. Some of the other issues, primarily fire and drainage, needs, fire, for example, was just looked at in the RCD. It's referred to as a scoping project. And so what we have, and we clearly call this out in the master plan, is our wildfire fuel management program, which looks at the specifics of what you're asking for. And that's something that
I got that was super clear. I think Hannah made that super clear. I guess it's but the drainage one seems like a different thing. Sorry, I just don't want you to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
It was really clearly presented and explained.
So the drainage is something that is also clearly discussed and outlined in the master plan and the PWA assessment. And it's really not something that can be looked at just at Quarry Park, given that it's drainage and it's water. That's something that has to be looked at community wide, and you can't just look at one street. And we've had this conversation with neighbors. We've also had this conversation with the Department of Public Works and are continuing those conversations. But a master plan for a park is not a storm drain strategy for an entire unincorporated community. I think that's where part of the disconnect is happening. And then lastly, concerns about things like dog parks. There was a public process for this. The public did not want a dog park at Quarry Park. And so while some may ask for it, we also have to look at what the broader feedback is. And the broader feedback was that a dog park was not desired at Quarry Park, that the dog community and that the community that participated in the process overwhelmingly wanted access to trails. So it's kind of a variety of things.
I hear you. Thank you. And sorry, I know we want to get to the next thing, but just on the sorry, you said it so eloquently, like stormwater runoff plan for the larger area. Like where is that, and will the Parks Department like participate when that comes around?
If something like that were to come around, we certainly would participate, just as we participated in the Resource Conservation District's scoping project for fire. But as a park agency, we are not a stormwater agency. And so that's really something that needs to be spearheaded by an entity that has oversight of the road system, as well as oversight of things like drainage. And there's a couple different entities that I think would be involved in that in the community of El Granada.
Got it. So maybe like, would it be a reasonable ask of the department to say, like, could the department raise that concern to the appropriate entities so that whoever should be coordinating that begins?
Already in conversations.
Great. Oh, that's so great to hear. Okay, thank you.
And maybe a follow-up to that. Sorry, I was trying to move forward, not got cut off on this a little bit. So what are those entities? Do you have like a list of those different areas that would have like not jurisdiction, but like would have kind of some form of a stake in going after this, or who have you guys been working with?
I think the first entity we have to speak with is the Department of Public Works, who essentially is responsible for the county road system in El Granada. But again, not to belabor this, but when you look at drainage, you can't just look at one street, especially in an entire community like El Granada that has steep topography and a lot of different routes for drainage, as well as a lot of different low points. So and again, the PWA assessment in the master plan has, discusses this, and I think adequately for the level of detail that a master plan is.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other comments from the commissioners before we move on? All right. Great. Okay, so now let's get on to the adopted budget. I believe Rolando's you're going to be presenting.
Hi, Chair Laguna. Nicholas will actually get it started, and then I'll go ahead and proceed from there.
Sounds good. Awesome.
And I believe Austin is controlling the screen. Yeah, perfect. So Chair Laguna, commissioners, thank you so much, Nicholas Calderon. Austin, next slide, please. So here's just a layout of the presentation today, and I will be walking you through the budget process and our strategic priorities, and then we'll be handing it off to Rolando, who I do just want to recognize Rolando and his team for the amount of work they've put into this process and the amount of time they've spent engaging with every level of the organization. It is a long, detailed process, and obviously very important. And so I do want to recognize Rolando and his team for the work they've done. Austin, next slide, please. So the commission will recall this slide, which is one that we showed last time, and the orange star is showing you where we are in the process right now, which is getting ready to go towards that September revision adopted budget process, which will be later this year. And in the past, we've gotten questions about when it is appropriate for really that detailed level of feedback for budget development. And that would be the green star process up at the top, which is, approximately like February-ish. So just wanted to lay out where we are in the process, given that the county does use a 2-year budget cycle. Austin, next slide, please. And then lastly, everything we do is in the spirit of these 3 strategic priorities: facilities and infrastructure, visitor experience, and natural resource management. And the 3 have a lot of overlap. They have a lot of individuality. And one thing I will point out is we have changed visitor services to visitor experience because we recognize that you can have a wonderful experience at San Mateo County Park without us providing that direct service. And so we have just kind of modified that, but making sure that we are addressing our deferred maintenance and having facilities that are properly functioning, making sure that we're recognizing as many operational efficiencies as possible is really important to how we steward the land, but also how we're responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. That visitor experience is why people come to the park. And Commissioner Merrilies was at the pump track grand opening. And I think if you saw what was happening that day, it was the experience that we were looking to provide. And it was really just kids having fun and parents having fun watching their kids having fun. And it was really a special moment and something that we are excited to be able to replicate throughout the system. And then natural resource management is really core to who we are as a department, and recognizing the importance of stewarding our land, not just for today's enjoyment, but also for future generations, and making sure we're also protecting our land as it's stressed by the impacts of climate change. So those are the strategic priorities. And of course, fuel reduction is built into natural resource management as well. And so those are the guiding principles that we use when doing everything, not just budget development, but everything we do. So now I will hand it off to Rolando to dive into the dollars and cents here.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. Austin, you can advance to the next slide, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Laguna, Parks Commissioners, Parks and County staff, members of the public. I am Rolando Herqueta. I'm the Administrative and Financial Services Manager for the Parks Department, and I'll be providing the overview for the Parks Department's fiscal year 2022-23 adopted budget. I thought it'd make things easier if I just referred to this budget as simply the adopted budget, and the fiscal year as 22-23 or 21-22 to refer to the 2021-22 budget. Gets kind of complicated. So I just thought I'd mention that. Before I begin, I do want to highlight the adopted budget packet that accompanied the agenda. It provides greater details into the Parks Department's proposed budget changes and breaks down the budget by budget unit. Before discussing the department's September revisions or final budget changes to the 22-23 budget, I wanted to reintroduce the tables that are presented on this slide. You can see the larger table provides a department level overview of the changes that were made from the 22-23 recommended budget to the adopted budget. The recommended budget was presented to the Parks Commission in April and was later approved by the Board of Supervisors in June earlier this calendar year. The adopted budget represents the second year of the two-year budget and primarily focuses on rolling over funding for projects and other minor adjustments after the closing of the 21-22 fiscal year. And as you can see, the overall department's budget is $69.5 million. The smaller table at the bottom of the slide is a breakdown of the adopted budget. The breakdown is by budget unit. And as a reminder, there are 4 budget units that make up the Parks Department's budget. All the department's net county costs or the ongoing general fund support from the county. And most of the department's positions are located in the Parks and Recreation 3900B budget unit. And as you can see, it's 27.8 million. The Fish and Game, Coyote Point Marina, and Parks Capital Projects budget units are not part of the general fund. The Fish and Game is a special revenue fund, and spending is restricted to activities found in the California Fish and Game Code. The Fish and Game budget unit is around 67.5 thousand. The Coyote Point Marina is an enterprise fund, which means that it operates and finances in a manner similar to a private business. And the Marina's budget is about 4.2 million and includes 3 regular or authorized positions. And the Parks Capital Projects Fund, which you can see is about 37.5 million. It's outside of the general fund budget, but it can receive one-time general fund dollars and other one-time funding for capital projects. As shown on the slide, in the larger table again, there were increases in the Parks Department's total sources, total requirements, and net county costs. And I'll explain the primary reasons for the increases and changes to the previously approved 22-23 budget in the next slide. So Austin, if you could take us to the next slide, please. So the primary reasons for the changes from the previously approved 22-23 recommended budget to the adopted budget can be grouped into these three main areas. The first area involves routine adjustments to fund balance. Fund balance can be thought of as the resources remaining from the prior year that are available to be budgeted in the current year. Final fund balance can be calculated at this stage in the budget process and after the previous fiscal year's books have closed. And overall, the impact to the department's final fund balance adjustments on total sources and total requirements is about 502.1 thousand. At the department level, final fund balance will primarily be used to help fund the Coyote Point Marina dredging project and remaining construction closeout costs related to the already completed Coyote Point Eastern Promenade rejuvenation project. Final fund balance in the capital projects fund also accounts for reserves that were used in part for the completion of the Memorial Park wastewater treatment plant project. The second bullet point or area largely involves the rollover of appropriations for projects, including operations and maintenance related projects and capital projects such as Realized Flood Park, park-wide paving, the Chinitas Creek Beach Improvement Project, Memorial Park facility improvements, and once again, the anticipated construction closeout costs for the already completed Coyote Point Eastern Promenade rejuvenation project. The impact on total sources and total requirements for all the adjustments related to rollover is approximately 32 million. So the bulk of our adjustments are due to rollover. And once again, during the adopted budget stage, the primary adjustments are related to the rolling over of remaining funding from the prior fiscal year. And then the last item is really a catch-all for all other September revisions. And this can include changes to extra help appropriations for the interpretive program and San Bruno Mountain Habitat Conservation Plan, increased utility costs and service charges, the recognition of Parks Foundation donations, the use of reserves for the Coyote Point Marina dredging project, and other minor adjustments. Additionally, there are other salary and benefit adjustments based on approved labor agreements and other impacts to net county costs that were made at the county level and included in the department's budget automatically. These adjustments do not report as a funding adjustment. It's not going to be in our funding adjustment in the packet, but are included in the department's budget. So the overall impact for these other budget adjustments on total sources is approximately 40.2 thousand, 164.6 thousand on total requirements, and 124.4 thousand on net county costs. Next slide, Austin, please. This slide represents the department's revenue sources for fiscal year 22-23. As shown on the chart, 40% of the department's total revenue is expected to come from other financing sources, and that includes funding for capital projects from the county's general fund budget. A few projects funded by this revenue source include Realized Flood Park, which is about 15 million, and the Memorial Park facility improvements at almost 938,000. Taxes is the next largest revenue source in the adopted budget at 32%. Taxes is equivalent to Measure K for the department. As you may all recall, Measure K is the countywide half-cent sales tax extension that was passed by San Mateo County voters in November 2016 and has been really a vital funding source for the Parks Department. I do want to note that Measure K allocations are ultimately approved by the Board of Supervisors. And as I'll discuss later, Measure K really helps fund capital projects, which represents about 8.8 million of the total 15.3 million in this category, and other parks operations and maintenance related projects, which represents about 4 million of the total. Charges for services at 8% of total revenue includes marina berth rentals, which is about 1.4 million, 1.2 million in vehicle entrance fees, and 801.2 thousand in camping fees. Miscellaneous revenue, 8% of total revenue includes one-time funding for capital projects. In this case, it's about 3.2 million for the Chinitas Creek Beach Improvement Project, and that funding is coming from the Peninsula Open Space Trust. Additionally, intergovernmental revenues primarily includes funding for the Chinitas Creek Beach Improvement Project at about 3.1 million. And I do want to point out that since the Tunitas Creek Beach Improvement Project has many different funding sources. The project pops up in different categories depending on the source of the funding. And then lastly, revenue sources only represents 5% of total revenue. Due to the small amount here, a grouping of other revenue sources was needed. And these include other funding for Tunitas and revenue generated from leases and rent, which totals approximately 269.3 thousand. Next slide, Austin. Moving over to the department's gross appropriations, fixed assets represent 47% of all planned expenditures. Fixed assets include appropriations for capital projects and large equipment purchases. Realized Flood Park with 16.2 million and the Tunitas Creek Beach Improvement Project at 7.9 million make up the most of this category. Salaries and benefit represent the next largest category at 23%. And that includes 14.5 million in the Parks and Recreation budget and 731.3 thousand in the Coyote Point Marina budget. Services and supplies, which is 13% of gross appropriations, cover non-personnel costs needed to operate and maintain county parks. Some examples include projects and contracts needed for fire fuel reduction and tree removal services. Other financing uses include appropriations for capital projects and projects that are managed by the Department of Public Works. These projects include the Coyote Point Marina Dredging Project, which is about 2.3 million, park-wide paving at 1.1 million, Memorial Park facility improvements at 826.9 thousand, and the Coyote Point wastewater collection system at 798.4 thousand. And then finally, other charges representing 4% of gross appropriations includes property taxes and service charges from other county departments. And some examples are HR and IT charges. Next slide, please. In terms of positions, there are still 78 regular or authorized positions in the adopted budget, which remains unchanged from fiscal year 21-22 and the 22-23 recommended budget. A breakdown is provided for each major program area within the department. Overall, about 72% of the Parks Department's regular positions are in the Park Ranger series, and they're kind of scattered throughout those program areas that you see listed on the slide. Not listed on this slide is the number of park aides in the county's park system, which will fluctuate throughout the course of the year. However, there are currently 33 park aides in our parks right now, and this is fairly similar to where we were at last year in terms of park aide positions in the field. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, the Parks Department's Measure K allocations total about 15.3 million. Based on the Measure K allocations for fiscal year 22-23, about 58% are allocated for capital projects, which will be discussed more in the next slide, and 26% for operations and maintenance. Examples of operations and maintenance related expenditures include park aid costs, general maintenance projects, tree removal services, repairs, equipment purchases, and so on. Beginning in fiscal year 21-22, the Board of Supervisors allocated 1 million to the Parks Department budget to help implement the adopted County Parks Wildfire Fuel Management Program. The department received an additional 1 million in fiscal year 22-23 for fire mitigation, and that represents about 9% of all Measure K allocations. Natural Resource Management, also assisting with fire fuel reduction work and invasive species treatment efforts, represents 4% of Measure K allocations. The Volunteer Stewardship Corps and interpretive programs combined total about 2% of Measure K. I should note that there are additional funds, including for positions for the interpretive program in the general fund portion of the Parks Department's budget. And in total, it's close to $500,000 for the program. The Volunteer Stewardship Corps has primarily been used to fund interns who work on site preparations for volunteer restoration projects, endangered species monitoring and mapping, and other event preparations. Next slide, please, Austin. Yeah, the CAT projects one. Thank you. As you may all recall, the fiscal year 22-23 recommended budget's capital projects program was not comprehensive, as the county had not begun the year-end close process at the time the recommended budget was being prepared. During this stage in the budget process, however, the department can account for the rollover of capital project appropriations. This helps explain the department's much larger capital projects list from the recommended budget earlier this year. The Parks Department's capital project list totals approximately 38.4 million in the adopted budget. The largest capital project in terms of available funding is Realized Flood Park, followed by Tenise Creek Beach Improvement Project and the Marina Dredging Project. And I should highlight that the Marina Dredging Project at the bottom is funded completely out of the Coyote Point Marina Enterprise Fund and is included in the Marina's budget. I should also note that some projects, including the Coyote Point Eastern Promenade Rejuvenation Project, have already been completed. However, additional appropriations remain to really account for those construction closeout costs that we still expect. Additionally, about half of the projects in the chart are in the pre-construction phase, with most in the assessment and design phases. These projects include the Coyote Point Water and Sewer Systems, Realized Flood Park, and the Huddard Water Lines and Supply Project. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation on the adopted budget. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rolando, for walking us through this. And I'm just thinking the level of information and understanding that I've gotten on the budget since the time that kind of I started till now. I mean, it's great, and I love this visibility and transparency. One question I have real quick before I hand it over to some of the other commissioners. So that whatever 32 million of the rollover appropriations for capital projects, is that just due to like delays or changes of kind of priority, or like what or was all that expected? And because it just seems like a huge influx. Is what was the reason behind that? You explained it. I just want to be able to go one step deeper into it though.
Yeah, I mean, the primary reason would be due to the fact that these are all multi-year projects. So we expect them to be, like Flood Park is a multi-year, it's such a large amount that we're going to have to roll over it, for several fiscal years before it's
got it. So it's more like just an account that you're pulling out of. So you would expect, okay, because when I first was looking through the documentation, it like jumped off the page that there were like tens of millions of dollars. But okay, it's less that there was a delay. It's more that these multi-year projects. You get the lump sum up front, and then you start kind of appropriating it across the different years. Okay, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and then we want to show the rollover to show the true amounts of what's actually been allocated for the project. Yes.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. Maybe open it up to other commissioners. Do you guys have any questions or other comments about? All right. Who wants to go first? Commissioner Green, you want to go first?
Sure. Just really want to say thank you for the information and the numbers and for explaining where the things are coming from and going. A thing would you please remind me, you've talked about before, and Nicholas has talked about the public works process for choosing capital projects. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like when, is that like a visible process at all? Or does that happen like totally behind closed doors when that comes around?
Through the chair, Commissioner Green, could you maybe elaborate on the question? I'm not sure
sure. I'm sorry. It's kind of
no, you're right.
I remember you said that like the projects that get funded, the capital projects that get funded ultimately like go through a process where Public Works takes a look at the capital needs all across the county's portfolio, and they kind of figure out what's the highest need for a given fiscal year cycle. Do I have that right? I guess if I've got that wrong, sorry. And then second, like what does how does parks fit into that? Like when does the public, if at all, kind of get to see that prioritization?
Through the chair, Commissioner Green, so high level, the way the process works is a department, could be parks, could be health. A department identifies the projects that they need the Department of Public Works to manage for them. It could be a design part, it could be the design part of the project, it could be an assessment part of the project, it could be construction. That department in question is the one who would make that determination, submit the project to the Department of Public Works, who goes through and essentially compiles all the information throughout the county and then passes that forward to a committee that is comprised of many people, including representatives of the county executive's office, the Department of Public Works, the budget office, and so on. And they go through and they rank these projects, and that goes on a list that eventually will go to the board for adoption. Now, before the department submits, there are typically, for parks in particular, it can be one of two things. Flood Park, for example, has gone through a very robust public process, and we know that we need more money for that. Or it could be, the pump track we managed on our own, but that would be another example of one where we went through a process and we knew that we needed a construction manager. This time we just decided to do it internally. Or it could be a project where it's not so much a public engagement process, where we're talking about a specific water line needs to be replaced, or a specific sewer line needs to be replaced, in which case that's not something that goes through a public process. That's identifying what of our facilities are working and what of our facilities are not working.
Yeah.
And for those that would fall in the deferred maintenance category, we don't go through a public process to say, should we address our deferred maintenance or not? We take it upon ourselves to kind of make that determination on our own.
Got it. Okay. And that meeting where you said it's like the county executive and so on, like, is that one a public meeting?
No.
Or it's just like when it gets to the board? That one's private. Okay.
Yeah. Typically for projects that are public facing, in the sense that it's an amenity or it's a big facility. Tunitas Creek Beach would be a great example. It's gone through its own public process at that point, and by the time we're submitting it to the CIP, we're really looking for someone to manage that project. But at that point, the public's already been looped in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Really helpful presentation. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Mariles.
Thank you so much, Rolando. It's great to get this level of detail, more than we could absorb. And, it'll be documented now. People can go back to it and look at it. So that's really cool too. And also it's a reminder to us that some of these things we advocate for are incredibly expensive. And when we're discussing whether to do something or not at the Parks Commission, we don't really know the total cost. Sometimes the total cost comes in years later. Some of the things that we do are incredibly expensive, and some of the things are incredibly cheap. And it's kind of nice to see some of the things documented that were inexpensive. Like the pump track seemed like, for the bang for the buck, that was like a really good deal. And one of the reasons I think it was a good deal is because we didn't agonize over it for 10 years. And you didn't need, we had a lot of public input that the public gave us that we didn't have to pay for. We didn't have to hold a lot of public meetings. Hundreds of people came to the Mid-Coast Council without a facilitator and without, renting venues and stuff like that. So when you lay it all out on these charts, it's kind of cool to see what is expensive and what is inexpensive. And going forward, in the future, I won't be around on the Parks Commission, but it'd be kind of cool to discuss how to get the most out of the Parks Department's budget in order to get as many amenities as we can, and natural resource protections and things like that, that take a smaller piece of the pie when you put it on a pie chart. So it's really cool the way you laid this out, that we can see the varying degrees of expense. And I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Any other comments, Sam? You have any comments or questions for everyone?
Just to echo what Commissioner Merrily said, I mean, it's not often that we see presentations that are put together and thought about. And really, I really like to commend, those that bring to our table and who are part of our circle within the realm of the commission that just works so hard in putting in a ton of unnoticed work that we really, really appreciate. And hopefully for Ronaldo's sake and everyone that watches us and follows us knows how much these special guests and how much these people put forth a lot of work that goes unnoticed. So I really, really appreciate it, genuinely.
Great, fantastic, good. Okay, so if there's no other comments, I'll wait one more moment. So I'm kind of rush ahead here. But if there are no other comments, I think we'll shift over to public comment.
Hi, Chair. I do not see any public comment for this item. Let's give it a few seconds to see if anybody will raise their hand. If you're calling by phone, please press *9. And there is no hand raised for this item, Chair.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks again for the presentation. That was really helpful, and I think now setting kind of like an ongoing, I guess, timing and timeline for some of these updates has actually proven quite well. I think maybe this is like the second or third that we've had, so I think it definitely provides us with a lot more information about what's going on and allows us to kind of dive a little bit deeper into what's happening. So thank you for pulling that together. Okay, we'll now move over to item 9, which is the subcommittee updates. And like we've been doing, I think this might be the second or third time we're doing this, but it's an opportunity to provide progress or discussion related to some of the work plan goals. So the work plan we did earlier in the year, as well as have any discussion on outstanding issues. So for all the commissioners, y'all are welcome to bring up any work that's completed since our last meeting, or provide updates or more information on plans as appropriate. So I'm just going to go down the list here on the subcommittees and see if folks have stuff. So on the budget and performance subcommittee, Commissioner Raquel is not here, but Commissioner Green, has there been any updates or anything you want to share with the broader team?
Well, we successfully heard an adopted budget presentation, so I'm really excited about that.
That is fantastic.
Through entirely the department's good work, but that is something that we've been, eager to see come together. This calendar that you were mentioning, kind of a regular, predictable cycle of information. So I'm just like really thrilled. And then Commissioner Raquel is not here, but I know that he and Nicholas and Hannah, maybe he'll reach out to you. I'll ping him about it to remind him, but I know he was interested in that Green Star part of the cycle and, connecting at kind of the ground level for understanding like the development of priorities. And I would just say like, my piece of that is I'm just interested in, so I know that we have our, what we call strategic priorities, but they are areas of spending and not like ambitions. And I know our strategic aim is not to do a bad job with resource management or to have a terrible visitor experience, but it would just be nice to think about like what we hope to achieve with the budget, and then think about the asks in terms of like how do we augment or like achieve our goals. And so I just hope to see some some of that starting to take shape now that the department is staffed a little more fully. That's it.
Great, fantastic. All right, next, dog management. So Commissioner Merrilees, any updates or stuff you want to share?
Nothing new. No, just ongoing, and it'll have to be monitored. It seems like we've got some positive reinforcement in terms of the policy. although there have been some bumps in the road. So yeah, that'll just be ongoing. But
Cool.
so far so good.
Fantastic. And then on the Parks Naming Subcommittee, see, I'm calling your name a bunch. Well,
Yeah,
Commissioner
no.
Kello's out, but
You know, that's a conundrum to me. I'm working on that. Yeah, there are some issues involved in that I'm trying to solve. But yeah, it turns out it's not as straightforward as I was hoping.
yeah.
But hopefully we can move forward. And then the
Cool.
other one that Maida Okello and I are talking about is kind of interjurisdictional contacts and networking.
Mhm.
And I guess Meta got a list from Nicholas about different agencies that we interact with the Parks Department interacts with, and we're trying to figure out a way to interact a little better with them. This runoff issue kind of reminded me how important that is. You know, water comes down from a park, and then it goes across the street, and then it goes into the ocean. And so there are a lot of agencies that are involved in that. The Parks Department can't take the water to the ocean without crossing through a bunch of different jurisdictions and agencies. And we need to know who those people are and work with them and develop relationships with them, and maybe even invite them to a meeting to talk with them about things like that. So yeah, that's what we're talking about moving forward. And the drainage issue just brings up how important that is.
Fantastic. Cool. All right. On the fuel reduction, I don't have much. The one area that we do have updates on, both Commissioner Green and myself, is on the Equity, Inclusion, and Access Subcommittee. But maybe before we go into that, because we do have a couple things, the last subcommittee, the Transparency and Visibility Subcommittee, Commissioner Mann or Commissioner Green, have any updates or things that you want to talk about?
Sam, do you have anything you want to share? I
believe Commissioner Mena may have dropped off the.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't see where I am. So I think that some of the priorities that we had laid out in the visioning that we did as a group have been starting to happen. So I have not checked in with the department, focusing more on the equity stuff this month. But I'm just like encouraged. I feel like we're moving in a good direction with the documentation for the director's reports and things being uploaded online timely, and we're getting numbers in the presentations themselves. So I just feel like it's moving in a really good direction. I'm thankful. Thank you, guys.
That is awesome. Great. Oh, and it looks like Commissioner Mann just joined back again.
Sorry, I had some technical difficulties and it was spinning and so it hung up and had to get back on.
Got it. Yeah, and we were just I was just asking about the Transparency and Visibility Subcommittee. I think Commissioner Green did a good job of kind of highlighting. I don't know if you had any additional thoughts or stuff that you wanted to kind of provide as an update.
Commissioner Okello is not here, and normally I think he typically he and I in the past have gotten on all the segments, and I haven't typically got.
I think Sam is on mute, but doesn't know.
No, I don't have anything at the moment handy on any updates in my area that I was going to furnish the commission. So nothing at the moment.
Got it. Cool. Okay, so maybe let's go into the Equity, Inclusion, and Access Subcommittee. So we have a couple updates this time around. And so since our last meeting, both Commissioner Green and I got a preview of the interpretive plan that was slated to be reviewed by the Board of Supervisors. I believe it's in the November timeframe. And so we both have a couple thoughts and feedback on the proposed plan. But before we got into it, I thought it would be good to ask maybe Nicholas and Hannah to set the stage a little bit, maybe in terms of goals, scope, and plan timing, and then we can talk a little bit about kind of our initial reflections from when we saw the first draft of the 75% draft of the interpretive plan.
Chair Laguna, thank you for that. So, yeah, so 2019, when we first decided we wanted to do an interpretive program strategic plan, the goal of the plan, or the intent of the plan, was to identify a series of goals that would serve as priorities for the interpretive program. Since the interpretive program had not had a formal strategic plan done since its inception. And so we wanted to have a set of goals that were developed in coordination with partners and community-based organizations and the public, so that we had programs that were meeting the needs, interests, and desires of the public. And so the strategic plan sets out these high-level goals that we will use to develop new programs, develop new partnerships, and provide more relevant services to the public. What we also want the interpretive program strategic plan to do is to help us engage with disadvantaged communities more. And what we want the interpretive program strategic plan to do is to help guide us to ensure we're providing more authentic activities. And so while the Take a Hike program is great and has had remarkable success, we also recognize that we need to be providing different types of programming. And so that's what the interpretive program strategic plan is it's a guiding document for our interpretive program that is also going to help us better serve disadvantaged communities. And we do think that we've accomplished that with this plan. So the subcommittee saw the 75% plan. So the next step will be taking those recommendations, organizing them in an implementation framework, and bringing that to the Board of Supervisors in November, at which point the department will work with its consultant who's preparing the interpretive program strategic plan, Conservation by Design, and will develop park-specific frameworks for interpretation for that park. So, for example, we will work with the Friends of Fitzgerald to develop the park-specific interpretive plan for Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. We will work with the Friends of Edgewood to develop the park-specific interpretive plan for Edgewood Park and Natural Preserve. So, so that will be the step that follows after adoption from the Board of Supervisors. And again, what will go to the board will be the final, as well as that implementation kind of structure. And then once that's adopted, we will develop the park-specific interpretive plans, which will go into greater details using the framework set out in the interpretive program strategic plan. So high level, that's kind of what that is.
Got it. Yeah, and maybe just to fill in kind of how I'm thinking of, or how we're kind of starting to think about like the commission's role in this, right? I think basically like today, we're just going to talk a little bit about kind of our initial reflections and kind of what we saw, what we didn't see. The plan is for our next meeting to have a discussion, and there'll be I believe, Nicholas, a more formal presentation of kind of the plan itself, the strategic plan itself, right? With the thought that in November, we would be doing a commission vote on approving the plan, and just making sure that all the ducks are in a row. And then I believe later in November, so after our meeting, is going to be the Board of Supervisors kind of broader approval. So that's going to be the flow that I think we're gonna go after, in order to make sure that we can provide the right input to this strategic plan, and ensure that we're able to kind of at least put out our voice as the Parks Department is putting together this whole plan.
And through the chair, we're just to clarify, we'll take an action item at the November meeting, but that is like a recommendation to the board, not an approval per se.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, great.
You're right.
Through the chair, Commissioner Green, great catch on that. Yeah, so we are at September 1st. So October 6th would be the presentation to the commission. November 3rd would be the commission's essentially deliberation and determination as to what action the commission would like to take, and the department will be presenting it to the Board of Supervisors on November 15th. The one maybe point of clarification, so consistent with the subcommittee structure that's been created as part of the planning for the commission, and October 6th would be the subcommittee presenting to the full commission, and then November 3rd would be whatever action the commission has decided it wants to take. You all would deliberate on that.
But no, I don't think that makes it, like, we need the department to present the plan.
So
right.
My understanding of the whole deliberation that occurred when creating the commission subcommittees and the structure was that the commission was going to have subcommittees that did these deep dives into these topics or these specific items, and then that subcommittee would bring that to the full commission. And so that is my understanding of how that was supposed to work.
We can introduce that, but in terms of like the content and the process, like it does not make sense for us to represent process and development and content that the department put together. We can present, and like our role is to inform the ultimate action taken by the commission. So the subcommittee is requesting a presentation to the full commission on this subject. Like that doesn't make any sense for us to, I mean, could I borrow your slide deck and your talking notes? It doesn't make sense what you're asking, what you're saying.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess my question is then we're given the same presentation twice, once to the subcommittee and then the same presentation to the full commission?
No. In October, it would be a presentation to commission for discussion. And then in November,
with all of our input and shaping of it, right, and consulting on kind of where we'd like to get things going. I also do have a little bit of a concern around us being the ones that present it, because if I'm presenting it, then I would put something together that made sense for me, right? I think our role is more consulting on this one and kind of helping you guys out. I would actually agree with Commissioner Green here that the presentation should in next month's commission meeting should be done by the department, right? Whether it's you, Nicholas, or Hannah, but it would be done kind of post us consulting with you guys on and providing input, right? Because I think you guys
which
also
we've already done. Right?
Exactly.
We've already done that part. So like that input was received from me by email, from Jorge in conversation. So like you have the subcommittee's input, and then now the 75% draft hopefully becomes the 80%. I don't know like how you plan to use the input that you've received. Hopefully use it in some way.
And that's the other thing. Sorry to interrupt, Commissioner.
No, you're fine.
That's the other thing, right? If we had carte blanche to kind of build the presentation and the plan that we wanted to, then I'd say, okay, yeah, sure, we'll present it. Thank you, right? But this is something where some of the input you're going to probably take from us, some of the input you may not, right? and this is kind of a Parks Department plan. I mean, I'm happy to kind of represent, like, you know, my part of the input and that kind of stuff, right, and what we added to it. But I think it probably would be best to have the Parks Department actually do the actual presentation with kind of the you know, kind of implicit kind of checkbox from both myself and Commissioner Green that our input was at least kind of taken into account as we move forward. And then that way we can have a better discussion with the broader commission, and not kind of be at square one, right? Because that's what we wanted to avoid, right? We wanted to avoid, you know, just throwing this thing to the commission and then all of a sudden, like in October, you know, having like 1,000 things we wanted to kind of go over. So, and I don't know, I mean, let's kind of chat about it, but I do think it probably would be best to have the department actually present in next month's commission.
So I think we'll have to, I need to really think about this. So my concern here is that both you and Commissioner Green provided information, but going back to what we talked about during those meetings with Donna, is that the commission is not advisory to the department, right? The commission is not revising department documents. The commission is making recommendations to the board.
Yes.
And so then if we're saying, thank you for your feedback, but we're not incorporating that because we don't think it's appropriate, then we really are, we are back at step one, right? We never got off of step one. So that's where I'm trying to just piece this together.
Through the chair, Nicholas, I disagree with you. Like,
Okay.
to say we heard your feedback, this was the feedback given, and we are not taking it, is an important step in the process. Like, we are stakeholders in the development of this plan. You are correct. We are not managing the department. We are, but we are, as commission members, as any member of the public would be, giving input on this plan. And we have the position of commissioner, which means that our feedback comes in at this stage, and to hear it reckoned with one way or another is important. And then we can make our recommendations to the board, which is our responsibility, informed by the decisions that the Parks Department has made. So, like, if we have ideas and the department decides that they are great and you want to work them in, great. If we have ideas and the department wants to ignore them or thinks they are bad ideas, it would be nice, and I think reasonable, to expect that you would at least acknowledge the input and then explain why it doesn't belong, so that we can consider that. And if it's a mix, great. And then go from there. For example, my feedback to date has been that I was disappointed to see that advancing racial equity is not called out in the plan as a goal. There's like a lot of other language that speaks to that, but not that. And my understanding of racial equity justice practices is that you want to name the problem. And so I was surprised to see that we don't do that, even though the survey statistics presented in the plan do indicate that we have disproportionate overrepresentation of white attendees at the parks, and not attendees and lower representation for attendees of color compared to the county's population. And so, like, you can tell me and our commission and the public why that is not a goal that should be named as a goal in the plan, and that's fine, but we should at least acknowledge it, and then we can make recommendations after the fact.
Or saying something to the effect of, hey, that's actually being handled by a total other initiative, right? And that's not the kind of goal of this strategic plan. But having that kind of back and forth, I think, will be helpful. And granted, it can be done also kind of offline as part of the subcommittee as well. But the thought is that's kind of where we can provide some value, as opposed to us, presenting something to the commission that may or may not have all of our input in it. If that makes sense. Oh, sorry. Do you want to respond first before?
Oh no, I just saw that Commissioner Merrilies had his hand up.
Yeah. Neil.
Yeah, I just had something to add. I wanted to talk about how we've always done this in the past, or we have done it in the past. Just because we've done it in the past doesn't mean you have to do it this way. But in the past, the subcommittees have always reported back to the commission. So we go and we meet, we have our meeting with whoever, and then you come back and report to the commission. You don't report to the Parks Department. But having said that, some of the subcommittees have had the Parks Director on the committee, like the Dog Committee, for instance. We had rangers, we had the Parks Directors on that committee, and then the commissioners would come back and report to the commission about what you talked to with the Parks Director and, with, whoever. But you weren't making your presentation, you weren't reporting back to the Parks Department, you were reporting back to the commission, because that's kind of where you came from and
Yeah,
who you're
that
reporting
makes
to. Anyway,
sense.
that's
Right. So that's kind of
what.
what we're trying for here, right? So like here we have an update that we had an interim conversation and got a preview of the plan and read it and gave comments. And like you've heard the nature of my comments and Jorge has others. And so that this is that report back. And then the next step in advance of the action item for the full commission to take would be a discussion presentation on the content itself, which you haven't seen, right? Other commissioners have not seen. And so to give enough time for you to ask questions and offer thoughts in October, so that should the department think those are worthwhile or what have you, make any tweaks and adjustments in advance of the November action item when the plan is brought back, as it will go to the board and for action for our recommendation or not. I feel like that is in line with how we would get prepared for an action item, because if we hear it all in November at once, and then if there are any thoughts to be made, then there would be no time to adjust the document in advance of the November 15th presentation to the board. So
Right, and no one's disputing that. I think the question on the table is who gives the presentation in October? And I think that in the interest of ensuring the commission has an opportunity to hear the item and deliberate and make its determination, I'm okay saying that the department will give that presentation in October. However, I do just want to be clear that I think there also needs to be offline conversations, and Jorge, that might need to be between.
Did we lose Nicholas? Of course, right when he was getting to the punchline.
Happens.
Page so that we can really effectively assist one another in achieving both of our missions.
So we lost you a little bit right in the middle there.
Oh, that was gold.
It was perfect. It was perfect. Yeah.
So what I was simply saying was that, my understanding of the work plan process that we had was what I laid out at the beginning, which was there would be a subcommittee meeting, the department would participate in that, lay that information out, and then the subcommittee would bring that forward to the full commission, discuss it at that level, and then the commission would deliberate and make a decision. That's very consistent with how we do it at the County of San Mateo and how other boards and commissions do it. And so that is certainly the department's takeaway of what the work plan process was.
Yeah.
With that said, I do want to make sure, we have to take this to the board on November 15th. And so in the interest in ensuring that that doesn't somehow get jeopardized, I'm willing to say in October, the department will do it. But I want to make sure you and I have conversations offline to make sure we're all on the same page of what the outcome of that work plan process was. Again, the way I laid it out is very consistent with how we do it here at the county, and certainly the department's takeaway of that work plan process.
Okay. No, and we can chat about that over the
Yeah.
coming weeks here and figure out exactly what it is. I mean, I would love to have it be, well, first of all, right, as we, kind of put the agenda out for next time, obviously we'll put, the substantive parts of it in there so that the commissioners will have a chance to kind of read and whatever and be ready to kind of discuss. I think the value of having it be in the subcommittee over this last like month or whatever is that we can almost be like a first run through, right? And hopefully we're channeling our inner other commissioners, right, to be able to kind of provide something that would be a little bit closer to what the overall commission would kind of align to. But yeah, I'm more than happy to kind of work with you as to how we would facilitate that discussion, right, in the next meeting, just to make sure that we can kind of get to that recommendation when we meet in November.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, Jorge.
Good. And then just to kind of close it out, because I know we're already at 2 hours 17 here. But my other comments that I had on it, and I think we had talked a little bit about it, was how this plan actually works with all of the other plans and other things that are kind of going on. Obviously, the interpretive strategic plan, it has a lot in it, right? But I know that it's not the only thing that's going to be driving like department priorities and like all these other things. So for me, and once again, I don't know if it needs to be documented in the plan, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about how this plan is going to be used to drive things like future budget processes and, future strategic plans for kind of other parts and things like that, and how it's going to work to kind of be able to kind of build a lot across a lot of what the department is doing as a whole, right? The other thing that would be interesting, and it's kind of tied to Commissioner Green's point about the racial equity part as part of the plan, right? I'd also like to know, if it's not going to be included, or maybe it is, right? But if it's not like specifically included in this plan, right? How would we plan to address it, like through something else? Or is there another initiative that we're going to be, putting out there, or do we need to kind of kick off another initiative? So it's things like that. How does this fit into kind of the broader scheme of the department's plans and how you want to move forward? That I think I'd like to get clarity on as we're moving forward. Once again, not a piece of the individual plan itself, but just how the plan works with everything else we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
Yep. Cool. All right.
Jorge, sorry,
Yeah.
I know we're going long, but just before we move off of it, if we're here sharing back, kind of process and what subcommittee has learned about the draft to date, just like wanted to take the comment on racial equity is not like the only takeaway from this document. It is an extraordinarily like rich and dense and ambitious document in terms of like all of the outreach and partners named and intended. And the department, kind of similar to the budget, there are areas for investment. They're not particularly like Nicholas was saying, that there would be an implementation plan component that would help stagger in time what happens first, second, etc. So that's not captured in the document, but it's a very wide-ranging and even sweeping arc for the department. And I know a lot of it is trying to do more than the department does currently. There are also some of the things that are familiar to us, some of the programming we've heard about already, going beyond just like the Take a Hike programs, for example, into other kinds of more like culturally diverse programming and naming lots of partners in various parts of the county, including those who serve various disadvantaged communities. So I just want, it's a tremendously rich document, and I'm excited about it. And I just hope we don't miss the opportunity to advance on, in particular, the racial equity front, because that so often is, intended but not explicitly prioritized. And so, I think it's buried in there, and my hope is that we can bring it to the surface a little bit more. But there's a ton of good stuff in there. So I'm excited for the department to talk about all that went into it and all of the, glorious good things that are in there.
Yeah, and of course we always focus on the negative, but you're totally right, Commissioner Green. It's very aspirational. It's a great, first step in a new direction. So yeah, I too was kind of, blown away by all the work that had been done on it. So yeah, we always focus on the negative stuff, but there was a lot of positive in there as well in terms of like what it is that the Parks Department wants to do moving forward. Commissioner Manna, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. I know it's 6:30 is in the driveway. This is probably one of our longest historic meeting, and I know we had a ton in the agenda. I cannot go without recognizing the hard work, Commissioner Green, and it's near and dear to my heart, of racial equity and cultural backgrounds and all of that in one platform. 1,000 applause to you for bringing that and that working through with that agenda. And I hope that we can have the county and the supervisors and the powers that sit on whatever board recognize the racial equity. So thank you, Commissioner Green.
Fantastic. Any other comments from the commissioners before we open this up for public comment? All right, let's open it up for public comment.
We're not opening public comment for this item. I did have a hand raised, but I think it just got lowered. Let's give it a few seconds. There are no hands raised for this item, Chair.
All right. Great. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move along to item 10, items for a future agenda. So I know I had raised the one piece, I might have raised it before, discussing the timing and logistics for the potential of having hybrid meetings. So I'll try to get that scheduled in one of the next meetings. I think we should start to have a position on it as we go towards the tail end of this year. I have a feeling that once the flu season starts, like it's, everything's going to kind of hype up again. But once we're kind of done with the year and into next year, I want to make sure we have a position as to how we want to safely sort out how to move towards hybrid and or in-person meetings. So that's one I definitely want to get going. I didn't know if for the other commissioners you guys had potential topics that we can add for a future meeting.
I don't have anything right now, but I'm working on something. Hopefully
Cool.
I'll have something in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, just grab me, or yeah, as we're building out the agenda, that would be good.
Chair Laguna, if you do potentially have the in-person, would they be in Redwood City or at the Captain House in Point?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I think that definitely would make for a good discussion as we're thinking about it. I think there's positives for both locations. I don't know about the scheduling for either of those two locations, but I think that's definitely something we should chat about.
Thank you.
Great. Any other items for future agenda that you guys want to get on the docket here?
Just looking forward for this, Commissioner Green, just looking forward to October presentation for this. And then we have the kind of like, we'll figure out the right time for the budget ones, but nothing new beyond that.
Cool. Awesome. I believe we have to open it up for public comment as well. So maybe let's do that right now.
Thank you. We're now opening public comment for this item. If your hand is raised, your name will be called. Let's give it a few seconds. I don't have any hands raised at the moment. Oh, I do. We do have Sid Young with her hand raised. So let me go ahead and put the timer, and she can go ahead and unmute her microphone and begin speaking. Go ahead, Ms. Young.
Oh, I don't even know if I'm here. Did I close it? Okay. I don't know. I got bounced out for a while back and had trouble logging back in, but so I missed some. Are you on the last part, which is to set items for future agenda?
Yes, we are. We're on item 10.
So I would like to suggest that you guys look at all the facilities that you have in the different parks. And I personally think the Mid-Coast is lacking. We have wonderful parks here, but they're all visitor serving or hiking, there's no real active parks as far as, maybe we have a few playgrounds type things, but there isn't anything nearly close to what Flood Park got in their funding. So there's a lot of population over here that is going unserved for those kind of facilities. And I would hope that maybe you would look into that, since Neil suggested it was the Mid-Coast Community Council that's stalling, but actually I have the feeling it's more the Parks Department, and maybe we're just getting the brush off because we're in unincorporated area. We don't have a city council who will advocate on our behalf. So we have to leave it up to our supervisor, who's very busy, and the Parks Department. So that's what I would like you guys to suggest, is take a look at where you're spending your money countywide, and then look and see what we have, which isn't all that much. And I really would like to see that on a future agenda. I don't know if you disseminated, Nicholas, when I made my presentation several months ago, the Mid-Coast Park mitigation fee and what it is for. It's not a private slush fund. It's actually to build facilities for the Mid-Coast residents. So I don't know if you gave that to all the parks commissioners or not, but I will send it off to them again if you want to provide their emails. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Young.
you. All right, Janet, it looks like there's a couple other hands raised.
Sorry, I was on mute and I was talking. Yeah, so we do have 2 more hands raised. BRS followed by Fran Pollard.
Okay, this is Bernard Severa. Since the
There you
Nick had made the comment about that the other agencies were looking into this, and there seemed to be some interest by the commission to follow up on that. I think that would be a great future agenda item to see what's going on with this runoff problem that we're having, and see what's going to be hopefully done about it. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. I will next call on Fran Pollard. Please unmute your microphone and you may begin.
Pollard. Pullman doesn't know how to.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I agree with the previous 2 speakers, everything they said. And I would like to urge that more money be allocated to Quarry Park for the fuel mitigation around the community. And that should be done sooner rather than later. I don't know why it's number 8 on the list. That's the most urgent area, is all the area that the perimeter of Quarry Park, which adjoins the community. That's the most dangerous area, rather than keep cutting and inside the park. Clear the big tall trees that are they're sooner or later going to fall on the houses or catch fire. So that's what needs to be spent. That money needs to be allocated to Quarry Park as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Chair, we have no more hands raised for this item.
Perfect. Okay. Well, if there's no further discussion, I'm going to move to item 11, which is adjournment. So I'll move to close the session, and thank you all for taking the extra time. I know we went a little bit extra, and we'll catch up in a month's time.
Hallelujah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Have a good night.